everyone, and welcome to MeowMix, Carolina Panthers podcast. My name is Steven.
My name is Jerry.
MeowMix, home of the original Carolina Reaper.
The big thing about that is I can't believe someone used the exact image that you created
Dude,
on AI and is selling the shirt.
the the image is everywhere. It's in news articles. It's on people's wallpapers. It's now being sold as t-shirts, not by us.
Yeah,
I mean by us, but also by other people.
yeah. T
Right?
Public,
Like
MeowMix. Check
yeah,
that out.
T-Public MeowMix. Yeah. Yeah, you get the original. Get the original. But yeah, it's funny. But hey, you know what? We contributed something.
Just something. It's a little
We're
something.
I mean, it's the most influency thing we've ever done, and nobody knows we did it. So except you guys listening. You guys know.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
guys know. The
it,
people that matter know. Right?
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a fun nickname. I love it. I
It's
really
it's
do.
cool. It's cool.
Like I get.
We'll always know, right? We'll always know where it came from.
Hey, and we bring it up almost every episode now. So
True, and we will continue to. No, just kidding, just kidding. Yeah, well, welcome everybody. We're here to do a little bit of a season recap, hand out some Meow Mix awards, the Mixies,
the Mixies, I
Meowies.
like it.
Yeah, yeah. Just give some grades out, and just kind of generally talk a little bit about the season. Not an agenda here, really. Just kind of whatever comes to us, we'll talk about. But I think where we should start really is
The fact that our head trainer got released or
okay. Well, there's
cut.
a little bit of news. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much that'll matter,
No.
but I certainly think that the amount of injuries we had this year, who do you blame it on? Do you blame it on the field? Do you blame it on the trainer? I mean, somebody had to go, I guess. But
I think there's a mixture. I mean, I don't know the ins and outs. I feel like this team has had a lot of injury problems, and he's been the head trainer for a while between multiple coaches and stuff. So I don't want to say one season. I get it, especially with the field and stuff. But it does seem that this team was snake bitten for multiple years, multiple coaches, but he's been the same guy.
can't hurt, I guess, right? Like it sucks that somebody lost their job,
Oh,
but
100%. Like,
you know, I can't imagine we'll be more injured next year, right? Like it's just hopefully, knock on wood, you know. But where I was gonna start, now that the news portion of the show is out of the way, uh,
had to
it's
slip
just
that in there.
the difference in terms of the fan base and certainly our feelings about the team today as to where we were week 3 of the season, right? Week 3 of the season, Bryce Young had just been benched. 2 terrible, terrible games. I mean, that second game, he had like 80 something yards passing.
He
You know,
just looked
he
atrocious.
he looked bad. He didn't look confident. Obviously, Canales, I kind of feel like at that point was done with Bryce. I mean, regardless of what they say, like I don't think he had any intention of bringing Bryce back.
I don't
Maybe
know
until the
about
very
that.
end of the
I was
season.
gonna say the end of the season, I could see it,
Yeah,
but man, not only that, I mean, he threw for 84 yards, 1 interception. He had 26 throws.
26 throws for 84 yards.
Yeah, average
Whew.
3.2 yards per
That
reception.
that's it's a different player.
It
It's a different
is.
player than the guy that we've seen the last couple of months.
And I will also say it feels like Dave Canales really struggled calling plays the first few weeks, in my opinion. I felt like he leaned too much on throwing the ball and
Yeah.
not enough trying to really pound the rock. I get that there was people in the box, but I felt like towards the end of the season, I felt like he also kind of got to feel better for his players, calling plays for them.
Yeah, I honestly think a lot of it was Bryce. I think early on he wasn't confident that Bryce could execute a lot of the downfield stuff. I think a lot of times Bryce just didn't throw downfield. and took checkdowns and took shorter passes because he wasn't confident in himself. But I mean, Canales basically said in one of the last few games after during one of his press conferences, basically that he felt he was able to open the offense up for Bryce. Now that Bryce was able to handle it, that Bryce has proven that he can make the throws, that Dave Canales felt like he could open the offense up finally, right? So I think that kind of tells you that this offense, when they started the season, was not the full Dave Canales offense.
No, it wasn't, but it definitely wasn't much of an offense, to be honest with you. Like,
Yeah.
18
Well,
completions, 84 yards. I mean, that's
yeah. I mean, and I think that's kind of the theme of this season was growth, right? Growth from the head coach, growth from the starting quarterback. Maybe not your defense. That I don't think they grew in places, right? But they didn't really get better overall
no.
as a unit.
No. As a unit,
Yeah.
the growth was not there.
But really, your two most important pieces on a football team, I feel like, are your head coach and your quarterback. And those two pieces got better, almost week by week. Yeah, a couple of hiccups here and there, but overall, I, you know, the confidence, the optimism, the hopefulness that I think most of the fan base has going into next season has to be higher than we felt in a really long time.
Oh, 100%. It's not even close. I
Yeah.
see. I've heard some fans on the radio call in who boo-hoo and say, why are you cheering for it? Because us as fans have been living in misery for about 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
6, 7 years, this fan base has been in misery. We have a glimmer of hope. Let us have hope.
Those people aren't real fans.
Like,
They're not fans of this team. They're just, I mean, I don't even want to say what they are. This is a family show. But they're not real fans. Like real fans understand what is going on here. Like this is a growing process. This was a rebuild. This
yeah.
was a rebuild this year. They improved on last year, which should have been a rebuild, but they tried to do something stupid and it didn't work out. This is a rebuild. And now we're going into year 2 of the rebuild. It's still the rebuild. I think we all need to understand that too, right? Like
So Super
as
Bowl next
confident
year.
as right. Like as optimistic as I am about next season, I do think next season, they could flirt with competing for the division, but I'm not confident they will win the division next year, right? I
Oh,
just
no, no,
think
no.
that I think they'll be in the mix. And I think that's given what we've endured these last handful of years, that's exciting, really exciting.
Yeah, I mean that's what I was saying. Like people, like you have to understand where we're sitting at here, guys. We're now looking at possibly competing for the division. That
Yeah.
that that's a legit thing. Get some pieces, have our defense hopefully get better, but the most important pieces, like you said, coach and quarterback, I feel I was up so high on them at the end of the season.
Yeah.
I mean, they're even our receiver room, who I still have questions about, I felt solid about Thielen, Coker, and Leggett trotting out there as 1, 2, 3. Like, yeah, they're not gonna burn the world down, but
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good receiving core for a 5-win team. That's not a
no, no, no.
receiving core that's going to win you 10 games, I don't think.
Uh,
But I do feel like the quarterback, the way he played towards the end of the season, uh, and again, this was a guy who people were wearing bags on their heads to games,
mm-hmm.
right? I mean, the entire NFL world was laughing at this organization. The Chicago Bears fans were just besides themselves with joy at how much they fleeced this organization. And now it feels like we won that trade,
Yeah, right
right? And
now. I mean,
I mean, I think we can go in this offseason saying we feel like we at least there's a chance that we won that trade, right?
mm-hmm. If Bryce plays Bryce was playing as a top 10 quarterback at the end of the season.
Yeah, he was by like almost every metric.
Yeah. I mean, and this is not just us fans talking about this. Legitimately, you could go out there and analytically, he was one of the top best quarterbacks towards the end of
Right.
the season.
And we saw it. Like you could tell just by watching the ball placement, the decision making.
Having
Everything was
fun.
just yeah. Everything was just he was raising the bar. It seemed like every week. And again, yeah, we won 5 games. Okay, we had several stretches where we lost, 4 or 5 games in a row, multiple times this year. But I feel as good about coming out of this season as I've felt probably since Cam left.
Yeah.
Like I just feel, I feel good.
Yeah.
This was a positive season overall.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like looking back at the season right now. And right, I think around the Washington game, we just quit recording because it was after the games because of the simple fact that it was depressing. We lost to the
Yeah,
Commanders 40-7.
yeah,
40-7. That was Andy Dalton's last game as a starter. Uh, and then, the Broncos game, Bryce looked solid. Then we won against the Saints and Giants, and we're like, oh my goodness, what is going on? Yeah,
yeah.
we
And
we,
then
we
went to
went
the
back
bye.
on the losing streak, but scoring 27 points was fun against Kansas City.
Yeah, those next 3 games were all winnable games.
Yeah. So
And
we're
2 of those games we should have won.
mm-hmm.
But things happened at the end of those games that forced us to lose them. But I mean, realistically, this Bryce played well enough to win 7, 8 games.
Oh, easily.
Realistically, right?
I
I
mean,
mean,
I
seven
would
games easily.
yeah, I was going to say I think there was 2 games that he didn't do play great that I would say this team would have lost even with a better defense, but
And we're talking about since he came back.
since he came back. And
Yeah.
that was the Buccaneers the second to last week, 17-16. I can't remember how many.
Yeah, but even still, like the defense was so bad in the Cowboys game and then that game
Those were the
that
two that I said
yeah,
that.
I really think that the only bad game he played was the Cowboys game.
Oh, he was bad at the Cowboys game,
Yeah.
but the way he bounced back against the Cardinals, and then even like you said, the Bucks and Falcons. I mean, I saw him bounce back and shake that game off. I was so happy just
Yeah.
because he could know.
It almost it was almost a good thing that that happened, right? Because it I think it not only proved to probably him and Dave Canales, but it certainly proved to me, as a fan and probably many other fans that okay, like this wasn't a fluke, these few games that he looked good in. And then it all came crashing down in the Cowboys game. That's not what happened,
Yeah,
right? He was able to bounce back and he was able to win his next game and have, success, late in the game to win it. And then, loses the next one, but then comes back and finishes the season strong. So this is still a young second year quarterback who's still learning, right?
yeah.
Um,
Eh, And I know we're talking a lot about Bryce, and he's going to come back.
I think that's the story of the season, though.
It is.
Honestly,
But we're also forgetting Chuba Hubbard was playing out of his
yeah,
mind for this team. When Bryce Young finally started to click is when Chuba ended up getting hurt. Like he played a couple games together and then it got injured. So I'm very excited to see these two kind of grow together because it finally felt like Canales, I've got a good running back here. Let me
hmm
not abuse him, but let's use him.
yeah. And again, it kind of all culminates, or not culminates, but maybe the genesis of all this was the work that Dan Morgan did in the offseason,
Mm-hmm.
getting Robert Hunt, Damian Lewis there in the middle, and kind of transforming this offensive line and to, coming from one of the worst, maybe the worst in the league last year, to a top 10 unit.
Yeah.
And they were able to protect Bryce. He went many, many games without getting sacked at all.
Yeah.
And other games maybe sacked once, right? and they were able to create running lanes. Like this wasn't just a good pass blocking unit. This was a good pass blocking unit and run blocking unit.
Yeah, Chuba gained 4.8 yards per carry.
That,
That's
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 that's top tier. That's great.
he was probably one of the top running backs for most of the season.
Yeah.
The injury kind of really derailed him, and of course, I'm not talking Saquon Barkley good. Like that's just
I mean, he and Derrick Henry are kind of in a league of their own. But I would say of that next tier, Chuba is right there.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, like you said, they weren't running Chuba as much as they should have early in the season. You know,
And they didn't
it
find.
really was. It really was until Bryce came back and that Canales really started to find the balance,
Yeah,
right? And then they started kind of winning some games
yeah, and then he also found that Miles Sanders wasn't good anymore. So
until the very end,
yeah,
until the very last game where Miles Sanders finally showed something, trying to get that contract. But
but
yeah. I mean, overall, again, you know, this is kind of what I hoped for, I guess, in the beginning of the year, right? We expected it to be, 6 wins, I think is what we both predicted starting the season. Might have been 6 or 7 wins. But we hoped that if they started off slow, which they did, that they would kind of find their footing as the season went on, that Bryce would look better as the season went on, that Dave Canales' play calling would get better as the season went on. And all that happened. Like this is, again, best case scenario is they come out on fire and everything looks great and they win 12 games. That was never going to happen.
no, I
I feel
mean,
like this is like realistically one of the best case scenarios for
I
this season.
I think at the very beginning of this season, I think we both said we're gonna grade how this team improves, whether it's with Bryce or without Bryce, if we find
Mm-hmm.
out what we're gonna get with Bryce. And I think we found out that we have a quarterback, and I
Mm-hmm.
also feel like you could tell Dave Canales was growing in his role.
Yeah.
So and again, what you said about the GM Dan Morgan getting those front guys is probably the key to the season.
I think it, yeah. I mean, it might be the key to the future of the damn franchise. If Bryce pans
Yeah.
out to be the guy, I mean, that it's such a big deal. But yeah, I mean, again, it's going to be hard to kind of give grades, I feel like, because it's almost two different teams,
It
you
really
know,
was.
pre Bryce benching and post Bryce benching, or post Bryce coming back. But yeah, well, yeah, I don't know. Any kind of other general thoughts before we start to get into some of our awards and things like that?
I dread how bad the defense was. I'm hoping that we
Yeah, I
can.
guess we should talk about that a little bit.
I don't really want to talk about it. We can move on to the awards. I mean, it's a historically bad defense. They gave
Yeah.
up the most points of all time in modern era. Gave up the most rushing yards of all time in the modern era. I mean, you can't stop the run. That's it. I mean,
It really is the main reason why this was such a bad team,
yeah.
or ended up with a bad record, right? Is because of how bad the defense was, especially after Bryce came back and was playing well.
Hmm.
You feel like there's 2 or 3 games in there. If the defense plays a little better, they win. And then even with Andy Dalton,
Hmm.
as poorly as he played kind of towards the end of his stretch there was still a couple of games there where they could have won had the defense been average. And
Yeah.
this was, like you said, a historically bad defense. You know, I feel like you almost have to give Canales a bit of he kind of got to grade him on a curve a little bit because
Hmm.
of what he had to deal with there, right?
Yeah. No, you have to at least acknowledge the fact that he gave Evero the defense. And I rightfully agreed with that kind of decision. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
you're brought in here for the offense, fix the offense.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in doing so, he had to remove a few pieces to get cap room. So, I
Yeah.
and then with the defense, so many injuries. Derek Brown going down week 1. Shaq Thompson, Josie Jewell didn't play till midseason.
DJ Wanham
DJ
didn't play till
Wanham, yeah,
midseason. Yeah,
and you could
and
tell
we
when he
saw
came back the
right.
difference of the pass rush.
He and Josie Jewell both, when they came back, really, the defense it still were giving up a lot of points and stuff, but the pass rush started really working.
They would make a
And
play here and there. It felt like,
yeah, yeah, they would get third down stops every once in a while,
yeah,
which was just unheard of before
yeah.
that. So yeah, just very, very tough season on defense. But Evero's back in 2025, and we'll see if they can make some moves here in the offseason to improve the talent a little bit.
I guarantee you, they will be better. Now, how much better, I'm not
Well,
sure, but
if they're worse, then
yeah,
I mean, they're gonna break their own record for mediocrity, or not even mediocrity, just horribleness.
yeah. I mean, you got to think you're going to bring back Derek Brown, the best player on the defense. That right there
Hmm.
is going to help
That's
the
gonna
run
help.
game, run defense. So,
Yeah.
well, and from there, Dan Morgan, you got some work to do.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And we'll be doing a mock draft, here within the next couple of weeks to, our first one. And I'm not going to prepare much for it because I kind of want to go through as we go through the mock draft, kind of learn about the guys that are going to be around the areas that we're picking. So it's going to be kind of a fun type of exercise there. But we'll see. We'll see what kind of defenders we can pick up in our mock. All right. Well, let's move on to our awards segment. Oh, should we do awards first or grades first? What do you think?
Let's go with awards since we're already talking.
Okay.
Awards.
Okay. Awards. Let's not go with the order that I have them in. Let's start with Rookie of the Year. Who's your Rookie of the Year?
Jalen Coker. I think he came
Okay.
on. He was the best receiver that wasn't named Adam Thielen on this team. He was an undrafted guy, but honestly, he looked better than Leggett. Now, I'm not writing Leggett off. I
Hmm.
think he's physically a freak and he could become something very special, a true number one. But for this season, I think Coker outshined him. I love the way he runs his routes. He catches the ball at the high point. He's good at catching in traffic too. So,
Yeah.
Jalen Coker.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm going to try not to choose the same guy. I think Coker is a good choice. And just real quickly, like Coker played in 11 games, ended up with 478 yards receiving. Leggett played in 16 games, ended up with 497 yards receiving. So almost the same production as Leggett in 5 fewer games.
And he didn't even really see the field in the first few
Yeah,
games he came in.
several of those games, yeah, he only played a few snaps. So I would agree. I think he probably is the Rookie of the Year. But I'll give a shout out. I'm going to give a shout out to Trevin Wallace. He kind of thrust into a role he was not prepared for. Um, Played 13 games, ended up with 64 tackles, had a sack, couple of tackles for loss, a couple of forced fumbles. Like, I wouldn't say he was good, but I would say that for what he had to deal with, he was okay. And then Shaw Smith Wade, another one who I
Mm-hmm.
think, especially towards the end of the season, really came on. And at corner there, he, he had an interception, 39 tackles. So a couple of guys there just to kind of give little shouts out to, but I think Coker is the guy.
Yeah, and Damani Richardson, quick little shout out to him.
Monty Richardson, yes, as well.
I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, we named 2 undrafted free agents and our third round pick. So
Yeah. He might even be number 2, actually. He might be the guy right after
yeah,
Coker. Yeah. He played really well. Okay. What do you want to go to next?
draft pick of the year. We'll stick on the rookie area.
Yeah, draft pick of the year. Okay. So draft pick of the year, different than rookie of the year, right? Because Coker was not a draft pick.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go Shaw Smith Wade. I think for where he was drafted, he's a 5th rounder, I
Mm-hmm.
believe. Um, the production that they got out of him, and again, a guy that improved as the year went on. I'm gonna give him draft pick of the year.
I get where you're going. I'm going JT Sanders. Even though he
Yeah.
didn't have the greatest year this year, I saw it. I saw what I wanted to see from him, and I felt
Yeah.
like he also got better as the season went on until that hit injury. And I'm hoping next year we really spring him loose.
Yeah, I love him. I just feel like for this year, I was a little underwhelmed with the production. But again,
Mm.
I agree. He certainly seemed to be coming on before he got hurt, and then it took him a little bit to get back. And the last game of the season, he had a couple of catches that kind of you glimpsed what he could be. But yeah, I'm that's a great one too. So we'll just do code draft picks of the year there. I like both of those.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's go with most improved. Most improved. I think even though Chuba was pretty good the year before, I'm going to go Chuba because I think he transformed into one of the top 5 running backs in the league.
Yep.
So even though he started from, I wouldn't say he started from like a high place, but he started from a higher than average place probably, or maybe average. Um, I'm going to give him the most improved just because he really went up several levels and was honestly one of the reasons why this offense was watchable for much of the year.
Okay. I agree. He had a great season. I think he
Mhm.
greatly improved. But let's be honest, Bryce Young, not questioning it. He was
Yeah,
he would people were talking after week 2 as the biggest number 1 overall draft bust of all
yeah,
time, and now playing top 10 quarterback towards the end of the season. Just turn around,
yeah,
turn around, turn around, turn around.
yeah. I feel stupid. Yeah, you're right. It's 100% Bryce Young. It's 100% Bryce Young. Yeah, yeah. That's I don't know why Bryce Young didn't come into my brain there, but that's obviously the answer. Yeah, it's
I was
definitely
like,
Bryce
oh,
Young.
we're gonna finally agree on something here. Then you said started talking Chuba. I was like,
All right,
okay.
Bryce Young is the answer. Chuba can be, number 2, but definitely Bryce Young. Yeah, for sure, for sure. All right, let's go with how about surprise of the year? Who
Mm,
you got?
I I could go one of two ways on this one, but I'm gonna go back to the well of Jalen Coker.
Okay, yeah,
I was shocked with how well he played. I saw guys in the chats preseason talking about him, and I just kind of was like, okay, okay. Never saw it in preseason and stuff like that, but towards that end of the season, man, I saw what they saw. Good
yeah.
route running, high points to ball. He's not the fastest guy, but he has good solid hands too. I think he could stick around in the league for a very long time.
Yeah, I like that one. I'm gonna go with DJ Wanham for me. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I was not overly enthusiastic when they signed him. I thought he was one of these guys who had a career year and a contract year, but was going to kind of revert back to form where he's going to be a 4 or 5 sack guy. But he really, when he came in, he was a force. He was a force. He really did bring the pass rush of the defense at least up a level where they were just inept before he came back, and he did at least raise them to maybe average. I mean, they rolled off a few games there where they had 4 or 5 sacks a game for several games in a row. And I think that was mainly due to him and Josie Jewell, but I'm going to give it to him because he's the edge rusher.
Mm-hmm.
He was a lot better than I expected, and I feel like you could even fit Bryce Young into this category as well, just as good as he looked. That's shocking to
Yeah.
me. So I think he could be there, but I'm gonna go DJ one.
Nope, that's a good one. DJ won him 4 sacks this year, and he barely played. So
Yeah, yeah,
good.
yep. I think if he played a full season, he's probably closer to 9 or 10, right?
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, that's on a terrible defense that could not stop the run. So his opportunities were probably way more limited than they would be, on an average defense.
Yeah. Uh, let's move on to free agent of the year. I think this is pretty clear.
Yeah, Robert Hunt.
Yeah, Robert Hunt. I'll say Damian Lewis just to
Yeah, just go maybe just because they're kind of a package deal,
yeah.
right? Yeah,
But man, they were so good, so
yeah,
good. They changed the trajectory of Bryce Young, in my opinion. Just they gave him the confidence of we're gonna keep you clean, calm
hmm
down.
yeah, yeah. I mean, again, trajectory. Not maybe not just of this year, but maybe of the future of the franchise. If Bryce turns out to be a 15-year starter for us, right? I mean, just hard to overstate how good they were. All right, just go trade of the year.
Trade of the year
I think
was
there's really only one choice here in
well
terms of just a no brainer.
Mike Jackson for like
Yeah,
the sixth round pick.
Barrett.
That yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Mike Jackson was the starter most of the season at
it,
corner.
it was solid. I
It was solid. Yeah.
we knocked the defense so bad, but J.C. Horn and Mike Jackson or Michael Jackson was pretty good. Like they held their own there, and Charles
Yeah.
Smith kind of came on towards the end. Do, do I think they can improve that room? Yes. Do I
Oh, for
think
sure.
do I think that they'll go into next year with this room and I feel okay? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, just with how much improved Shaw Smith Wade was, and Mike Jackson was okay, right? He was average, which I think is pretty good, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what would you grade like the Dante Jackson for Deontay Johnson trade? I mean, feels like we probably lost that one.
We lost that one. I mean,
Yeah,
I mean, Action
Deontay,
Jackson. Their names are
yeah,
so similar too.
I know, I know.
he
It's hard to,
he had a pretty solid year for Pittsburgh, so I would say that. I mean,
yeah.
from what I heard from Pittsburgh fans, he did his normal going for the ball a little bit too much, give up big
hmm
plays.
Yeah,
But
but he made some interceptions. I mean, I saw plenty of highlights from him,
yeah, so
where he picked the ball off. So I think he certainly had a better year than Mike Jackson. Certainly had a better year than Deontay Johnson.
yeah.
Like that, there's no doubt about that. All right, let's go with what are we up here? You can go LVP,
Mm-hmm.
least valuable player. We can end on MVP.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna go.
All right, I feel like there's there's quite a few options here. Um, could always go with Ian Thomas, right? Just provided nothing once again. He was hurt most of the year though, so it feels like low hanging fruit. Um, I'm gonna go Dane Jackson. I'm gonna go
Okay.
Dane Jackson. I think Dane Jackson when he played was pretty bad,
Yeah, and he was a
and
big signing too.
right, the amount of money
Big.
that he made for the production that we got from him was just, I mean, it was bad. So that was a miss on signing. Thank goodness that they actually got Michael Jackson because if Dane Jackson would have been starting the whole season, I think the defense would have been even worse than it historically bad already was. But I'm gonna go Dane Jackson as my LVP.
I am going to go to Deontay Johnson.
Mm,
Um, mostly, he was going to be our clear cut number one. Uh, Dave Canales came out and said that he's going to be our first read most plays,
yeah,
and instead, he caused so much division in that locker room that he got traded for nothing. Then gets cut by that team, gets cut by picked up on waivers, cut by one team. This guy, he has the talent. We saw it here, but obviously something was going on where he was calling for the ball and throwing a temper tantrum in the locker room, especially with Bryce Young in that room.
hmm
He could have been part of the reason why he was struggling so bad in the first. I'm not saying he's the only reason, but when he got left, you could see this team started playing better overall, like
right,
especially on offense.
yeah.
And the more and more I see him getting released, I think he played a part of why they were so bad.
He cost himself so much money. just by having a terrible attitude,
Yeah.
right? Like all he had to do was play this season out, be the number one guy, because when he played, he was not bad, right? Like
No.
he caught the ball, he got open, uh, but his attitude was just so bad that I don't know if he thought he was going to cost himself money by not getting the ball enough or, whatever the case is. It was just terrible. And again, he talked himself right out of town, and now he's on his third or fourth team,
I think it's
not going to
his
play at all,
fourth or fifth
and
team of the season.
of the season, and he's not getting paid next year.
No.
Like certainly not. I mean, somebody might take a flyer on him, but he's not going to get the big contract.
No.
Not even
No.
close.
No one's going to want him in that locker room.
Yeah. Jerry, I hate to do this right when we're about to say MVP, but we're going to have to take a quick break.
Drum roll, please.
Yeah.
All right. I hope that drum roll was not very long. Now
The
let's go
magic
to.
of editing.
Yeah, I know. Let's go to the MVP of the season. Steven,
Yeah,
your answer.
again, I feel like it's you could legitimately go with two here, but I'm gonna go with the obvious one. I'm gonna go Chuba. Again, he raised himself up to a legit RB1, right? Top five running back in the league, I think, pretty clearly. Really high ceiling going into next season, especially if Bryce can hold it together and, be as good as he was, in the final parts of this season. So sky's the limit. I think he's a 1,500-yard rusher next year. So I'm going to go Bryce Young MVP. Or not, excuse me, Chuba Hubbard MVP. Chuba Hubbard MVP, excuse me. Next
I
year,
thought
maybe.
you did that
Next year,
on
maybe.
purpose, and I was like, "Wow, that was such a slick."
Listen, no,
So
no, not that slick.
Oh man. Yeah, Chuba was my guy. Honorable
Yeah.
mention to Bryce Young, Adam Thielen,
I would
Dave
say honorable
Canales,
mention to J.C. Horn.
J.C.
That was
Horn.
the other one I was thinking because he certainly anchored that defense. He played almost every game this season. He made the Pro Bowl. Certainly his best season from start to finish because he did start and he did almost finish. Um, so I think I could have given him surprise of the year too, just for the fact that he played. Right. I mean, the fact that he made it through most of a season, almost the whole season. Um, so I just wanted to mention him somewhere because he did have a good season, and
Yeah, he really did.
you know, especially coming up with they're going to have to make a decision about him in terms of a contract. He needed to have a season like this
Yeah, I think what you have to do is sign him to a 2-3 year extension, and then
if he'll
say,
take it.
yeah. Well, I mean, otherwise I'm going to tag you. That's what you tell him.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
and they
True.
will renegotiate in a year or two if you could continue to stay healthy and play the way you've been. That's what I would do. Or, well,
I think that's
obviously,
fair, right? I mean, the guy's just not been healthy his whole career.
no,
You can't give him a top tier cornerback contract off of one healthy season
no.
where he wasn't even healthy the whole season. Like he still had injuries here and there, and he still missed games. So, yeah.
All right,
Okay.
let's go on to the last segment here. Grade for the season. Starting off, special teams.
Yeah, I mean, Eddie P had some issues this year. Like started off gangbusters, got hurt at some point. We don't really know when. And he started missing some kicks. I feel like Hecker was his usual pretty good self, right? Not overly amazing, but didn't make mistakes. I don't know that I was impressed with the return game. I'm gonna go C minus for special teams.
That is exactly what I was gonna go to. I mean, exactly for the reasons. I mean, did we have a block punt or kick this year? I don't think so.
I don't recall.
I don't remember too many big returns. I think one or two, but nothing like. I don't
I
think
don't
we
think
took.
they housed one.
They didn't house one, and it felt like no matter what, it felt like even the new kickoff rules. It felt like they were kind of beyond, or not beyond, but they were behind other teams in the thought processes of it.
Yeah. I think a lot of it did have to do with Eddie P getting hurt. I'm curious to see if he's back next year.
Yeah, I don't
Uh,
think he will be.
if I had to bet, I would say no. Yeah, but yeah, just not a nothing stood out for me on special teams this year.
Yep. Uh, Defense
F.
F. I mean, you gave up the most points of all time. Like
Yeah,
J.C. Horn had a good season. Mike Jackson was solid. Like, okay,
yeah. I mean,
next.
the 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 injuries killed it. The injuries killed any hope that they had, but you can't grade, what could have been, right?
Yeah,
We have to grade what was, and it was awful. So, offense. This is an interesting one. What do you got on offense?
I am gonna go B plus because
Okay.
I I saw growth. The offensive line showed really well this year, like you said, pass blocking and running. Chuba stepped up and probably could have been a 1,500 yard back if we if he
Used
was
properly. Yeah.
yeah used properly. And the last couple games I think were just, let's not get him hurt worse
Sure. Yep.
because we're gonna ride him next year. And the only downside I would see is the receiver room. Leggett didn't have the season I wanted. He showed a lot of issues.
Hmm. Lots of
Adam
drops.
Thielen was injured, but again, you
Yeah.
can't. Yeah, I can't just say, "Oh, he was injured." Deontay Johnson was a big bust.
Train wreck. Yep.
David Moore surprised me and was solid.
Yeah. I mean, he could have been surprise of the year. He certainly did more than expected.
So yeah, I'm gonna go B
And then,
plus. Sorry.
okay. I think that's high. Um, we can't forget about the first half of the season, which was just abysmal for the most part. You had the one Andy Dalton game in there where they put up 39 or 36 points or whatever it was. But the first half of the season was bad offensively. Um, so I almost feel like you almost have to give it two grades because again, like the second half of the season was so different from an offensive play calling standpoint, from the way the quarterback play and everything. That's really when Coker kind of came out of his shell, right? So I think overall I would have to go maybe C plus. But they ended, maybe it was a D when it started and it was a B where it finished, but I'm just going to go C plus overall.
Okay, I get that. And like I
Yeah.
said, my thing was growth, and
Yeah.
I graded with growth. So
Yeah. Nope. I agree. Okay. Let's go GM. What you going to grade? Actually, I guess I'll go first. What am I going to grade Dan Morgan's first season? He had some hits. We talked about the Mike Jackson. We talked about Robert Hunt. I felt like the draft was pretty good, although the Jonathan Brooks pick certainly seems like at this point to be a bad pick for your second rounder. Leggett, still a question mark there as to whether he was worth, trading up into the first to get. But they found some gems, with JT Sanders, with Shaw Smith Wade, certainly with the undrafted guys that we talked about. Um, I think I'm gonna go B plus, I think, for Dan Morgan first season.
okay, I'm actually gonna go B minus.
Okay.
Um, it felt like there was some obvious holes in the offseason that he didn't address. But the reason why it's a B is because what he did surrounding Bryce, protection with going his big two free agent signings
Hmm.
were home runs. Um,
Remember a few years ago when our big two free agent signings were those other two linemen that
oh
just
God, oh that was so bad.
remember we ran out in free agency. That was the first Matt Rule year, I
Cam
think.
Irving and
Cam Irving and the other one
the
that I
guy
can't
from
remember his
Minnesota, the
name.
worst pass blocking guard. Pat
Yeah,
Elfline.
Elfline. Yeah,
Oh my
remember?
god. I
And
was
what a
so livid at
difference!
that.
What
Now,
a
no,
difference
these were
these
good
two are.
sightings, though. We even at the time we were like, "Oh, that's awesome."
Yeah, right. I mean, it felt like there might have been an overpay to get them here, but man, it turned out to be a great signing.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you had to pay the Panther tax.
Yeah,
Worst
the
team in the
Tepper tax.
league
Yeah,
tax. It's yes, just
yeah.
what you had to do. But those signings were great. The draft, like you said, it hits and misses, and missing early, like in the first, second round. It seems like right now
That's tough. Yeah.
that's gonna really dog it. But I'm holding out hope for Leggett. Brooks, I'm more worried about with two ACL tears like he did. That's really
He
scary.
might just never be healthy. Yeah. And then with the Chuba emergence, like it certainly seems like it was a just a wasted pick.
Yeah.
Just didn't need to do that. So but they were going BPA, right? That was the highest player
No,
they had on the board. And
and he showed a glimpse of why he got drafted where he did. But the
yeah,
problem is, shortly after he got injured again,
yeah,
and
yeah.
it's long way back, man. Hope you get better.
Yeah, I mean, and again, hard to play devil's advocate, look at it at the time, like Chuba wasn't who Chuba ended up being, right? Uh, they expected Brooks to be ready by the beginning of the season when they drafted him, and that certainly wasn't the case. So it turned out to be a bad pick, but at the time, like I can see the thought process, right?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't
Yeah,
land base it. I mean, if they thought
yeah.
they were getting a top
I think
running
we were
back,
excited about the pick at the time.
yeah. Heck, if he comes back healthy, and like, I'll be
Yeah, sure.
excited then with Chuba and him. Like, that's a great one too.
Yeah, his career's not over by any stretch, but it just might be 2026 before we actually get to see what he could be, right?
Yeah, I mean,
So,
yeah. Um, now let's go on to
head coach.
head coach.
Head coach. You go first this time.
I am gonna go straight B. I feel like he did grow during the season. I still question some of his play calling. Getting away from that run game seems. I don't. I'm hoping that's not his trend, but Bucks fans told me it was, so that worries me.
I mean, we saw it.
Yeah, so he had some growing to do, some clock management issues, not much, but you felt like the team rallied around him. They kept fighting hard for him, even though it was gone. So overall, I'm giving him a B because I like where he's going. He wasn't perfect his rookie season, but I also felt we may have made the right choice. I wasn't a fan of his in the choice, but we may have made the right choice.
I'm tempted to go A minus. I think I might end up at B plus. We'll see where I end up at the end of my talk here. Um, I think he handled the Bryce situation perfectly, right? He gave Bryce the opportunity at the beginning of the season to come in as the incumbent starter. He did not like what he saw. Nobody did, right?
No,
Bryce was playing terribly. Um, he made a very difficult decision,
very difficult.
and it worked out, right? I mean, he Bryce sat for 4 or 5 weeks, seemed to stay engaged, which I credit Dave Canales with. He did not make him feel like he was done, right? There didn't seem to be any legitimate idea of trading him, right? Despite what the media wanted to say, like there was never an indication from the Panthers that they were moving on from Bryce. Um, Canales, he's building a culture here. They brought in Deontay Johnson, quickly realized that he was not a fit with the locker room and got him out of here, even if they had to take a loss on it, right? They just got him out of here because he
Yeah.
wasn't a fit.
And honestly, that is a big credit to Canales and Dan Morgan for making
Yeah.
that move.
Yeah. Um, you know, as you said, the growth that we saw as a play caller for sure. I thought the clock management was shaky at times early on, but I thought got better as the season went on. saddled with that terrible, terrible defense. I thought the offense played admirably, certainly in the second half of the season. I thought they went for it on fourth down a lot. Maybe a few times I wouldn't have, but I like the aggressiveness of Dave Canales. It certainly shows your team that you trust them, you believe in them. Um, again, I just feel like between him and Dave and Dan Morgan, the kind of the keep pounding culture is coming back, right? The type of players that they're bringing in, they want guys that love football, right? Dave Canales obviously loves football. You can tell everything he says. Like
Mm-hmm.
he loves football and he loves his players. He loves his team. He loves having the team. I think he loves being in charge of the team. He did say that it was harder than he thought it was going to be.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Like, yeah, I mean, he straight out said it. He was like, "This is, the late nights and all this stuff." He's like, "I kind of wasn't expecting that. It was definitely, he went through some growing pains, I think, but always positive. Never really seemed to throw anybody under the bus like we've seen with coaches in the past here."
Yeah, I 100% agree that I don't want to hear a coach throw a player underneath the bus, even
Hmm.
if I think they deserve it.
Yeah,
It's just bad look. It's such a bad look.
yeah, and I mean, he certainly, when asked certain questions, he was truthful, but in a way that he took a lot of responsibility, on
100%.
himself, right? So I think I'll probably end up at a B plus. I think he, for his rookie season, he kind of was dealt some bad cards with injuries and certainly with the defense being gutted in the off season. But you know, I was certainly more optimistic about him coming in, but didn't know a ton about him. It was mainly hope. I think is where my optimism came from. And the fact that I like guys that kind of go through some stuff. He certainly put his dues in. He was a coach in the league for 10 years or something before he became the offensive coordinator. Made a quick move up to head coach from there, but it seems to work out, right? I mean, I think Tepper made the right decision. Dan Morgan, they made the right decision to bring this guy in, and we're building something here. I like the direction that we're going, so I'm gonna go B plus.
Nice.
Let's add one more. Let's go owner. What are you going to grade David Tepper for this season?
B.
B?
Yeah. He did have that
I think
incident
so.
at Dilworth at the beginning of the year when he like went in to the Dilworth play restaurant and took off the
Yeah.
guy's cap and stuff like that.
Was that
Just
was that this year? Was that
yeah,
this off
that
season
yeah,
or
I
okay?
think so.
I don't remember
If not,
when that
my
was.
grade is low, but that's
Yeah.
why. But since then, I haven't heard from him besides like the normal stuff. Like, and you could tell it felt like it. Dave and Dan were running the show.
Yeah, I think him stepping back and we got some reports from some, like Joe Person, I think, reported that he was letting those guys run the show. He was not as involved as he has been in the past. So I mean, for that reason alone, I agree. I think B. He's, they still have the artificial field, so he'll never get an A from me until they replace that grass. I put the grass back. But no major embarrassments this season. So I think that alone gives him a B, right?
Yeah. At the end, we ended up giving $180 and 4 cents to St. Jude's. I haven't withdrawn it yet, but that will be going to St. Jude's unless we
Yeah.
want to bet on the Super Bowl or something like that. But I haven't withdrawn it.
Yeah. I think I'm happy with giving the kids. Yeah.
Gambling
Congratulations.
for the children.
Gambling for
I
the
that
children.
will be returning.
A segment that will return for sure next year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that. That was a lot of fun, and I think
Yeah.
it kept us honest on our bets because I
Yeah.
want money for kids.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we gambled responsibly,
Yes. How
right?
you
We didn't go
always should
crazy.
gamble.
And how I personally never gamble. Very irresponsibly. I ended the season with $0. So
Well, this is all the gambling I did this season, so.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, it was not for me. But you live and you learn. I had fun.
Yep.
That's all that matters.
All right, we want to thank everyone for listening. If you like the show, please let your friends know. Please follow us on Twitter at MeowMix Podcast. If you have any questions or comments, you can email us at mailbag@meowmixpodcast.com. I got to make sure that's still working, that connection. And if you leave us a 5-star review with a comment on Apple Podcasts, we'll read it on the show. Please like and subscribe on YouTube.
We will be back. I think we're going to try to come back next week. If not, it'll be the week after. We're certainly not going to leave you guys hanging for more than a week or two here in the off season. We've got some ideas about some things to talk about, this off season, and maybe some people we're going to bring in to kind of help us talk about those things. So, looking forward to this off season. Looking forward to, keeping the podcast going. I think I'm reinvigorated by this
Yeah.
season.
I mean, like I said, that Washington game was a low point where we didn't want to record after the
Yep.
games and stuff like that. And then even on losses, we were coming back just because they were not demoralizing.
Yeah. Yeah. So looking forward to talking to you guys soon. And shoot us an email, like Jerry said. Leave us a comment on the YouTube, on Twitter, wherever you want to talk to us. You want to hear us talk about something, let us know. We'll be happy to in the off season. I mean, it's sometimes hard to find content. So, but until next time, everybody stay safe out there and keep pounding.